Hello and welcome. My name is Teresa and I am the Northeast Regional Program Manager with the Iowa Soybean Association. We have been seeing an increase in corn rootworm pressure in northern Iowa, and I'm going to tell you about a trial opportunity that we have for this pest. Those of you in northeast or northwest Iowa have probably been noticing an increase in rootworm pressure recently. Here's a map illustrating the percent of fields above the economic threshold in 2019 versus 2020. So in 2019, 11% of all cornfields were above the economic threshold of 2 beetles per day per trap. And then in 2020, that number jumped up to 22%. So if we break those numbers down a little bit more, in continuous cornfields, the increase went from 18% of fields in 2019 to 33% in 2020. But for first year corn or corn after soybeans, that increase was only from 3% to 3.9%. And this increase that we're seeing is in response to a number of factors, including the favorable weather that we've had for the last several years. So here we have a chart that shows the same data for 2020 in a little bit of a different way. So we've got the range in average number of beetles per trap per day, broken out by crop rotation and by severity. So let's look at this first column here as an example. So this represents all cornfields regardless of rotation. And here we see about 40% of those fields have at least some corn rootworms, and about 20% of the fields, so these ones here, that were above the ISU threshold for corn rootworm. And then looking at the first year corn, we see quite a big difference. So there was only just over 20% that had any corn rootworms at all. And this very tiny percent, this orange bar here, was fields that had corn rootworms above the ISU threshold. And then finally, we'll just take a look at corn following corn. So here we have over 50% of fields that have corn rootworm present, and a whopping like 25% of fields that have corn rootworm above the ISU threshold for the pest. So this is just another way to illustrate those differences between corn following soy and corn following corn. There are some concerns about preserving the protective crop traits that we have for this pest. There are 4 different Bt toxin traits listed here, and unfortunately, corn rootworms have demonstrated resistance to all 4. However, corn rootworm is not a very mobile pest, so there are pockets of resistance here and there, but there are certain traits that are still effective in a lot of areas. So what we want to do now is make sure that we preserve the remaining efficacy of those traits where they still work, and make sure that we keep that as a tool in our toolbar that's available to us. So to do that, we need to be really mindful of our management and use our tools in a smart way. And that means scouting and keeping on top of the pests, rotating between traits, rotating the use of traits and other management options like soil insecticides or foliar insecticides, and finally, of course, rotating crops. Rotating out of corn does remain a very effective tool against corn rootworm. Just to really hammer this home, we also have some academic support for rotating crops as an effective tool. So Carrier et al. Found that even a 1% increase in rotated fields decreases fields severely affected by rootworm by 3.7%. And Livingston et al. Found that doing some economic analysis, the economic benefits are maximized when corn is planted less than 60% of the time. And then finally, we know that there are some other benefits to rotation outside of corn rootworm as well, and that includes an increased yield as well as a reduction in fertilizer needs. So there is some research that indicates corn following soybeans needs up to 50 pounds less nitrogen per acre as compared to corn following corn. And of course, rotation can also help us to control other corn diseases and non-rootworm pests, of course, which is another good thing. So we are looking for participants to help us dig into the economics of rotation a little bit more. And we're looking for fields that have been in corn for at least 2 years, and we'd like them to be planted to half corn and half soy. You can either do right down the middle, as in this plot layout here, or you can do this soy in between 2 blocks of corn over here. And if you do the second version, we can kind of get some pseudo reps and help control for field variability just a little bit more. We would also need your yield data for the field from 2020 and 2021. And what we'll do is we will come out and quantify corn rootworm damage in the field using root digs and sticky traps. And we'll also pay out a $750 hassle fee on receipt of the data. So the main goal of this trial is really to compare the difference in return on investment for corn on corn and a corn soy rotation in a field that has been receiving corn rootworm pressure, essentially. So if corn rootworm has been a problem for you, I hope you'll consider working with us on this trial. Or if you don't have time for trial work, I hope you'll consider using rotation as a means of rootworm control and crop trait protection. So here is my contact information, as well as the information for my counterpart in the Northwest, Scott Nelson, and our information can also be found on the Iowa Soybean Association website. Thanks for watching.